across America right now, we are locked in this campaign cycle. And what do you know? There are a very large number of black candidates for Senate. And I know, Gary, you wanted to talk about some of these races. So we have a little bit of this information. We're gonna focus on a few. For context, though, I wanted to let people know there have been 1,307 people who have served in the US Senate throughout its history. Only 10 of them have been black out of 1,307. 6 black non-incumbent candidates won major party nominations for Senate seats. That's this year. Victories for the 5 Democrats and 1 lone Republican would constitute a dramatic increase in representation in a body that's been stubbornly white, wealthy, and male for nearly all of its 200 plus years. So 10 black senators throughout history, a good portion of them quite a while ago, back during Reconstruction, and 6, the vast majority running as Democrats right now, potentially could be a massive change of that number. Although even if they were all successful, it would still be the most wildly unrepresentative thing I've ever heard. But anyway, Gary, what do you think about some of these candidates? Who's particularly drawn your attention in this cycle?
Well, I'm in Louisiana, so Adrian Perkins is running for US Senate here in Louisiana, and he's making up some ground. He's challenging Bill Cassidy here. He's the mayor of Shreveport, Louisiana, and he's been all over the state. I've had the opportunity to meet with him twice in the last 2 months, and I'm impressed with him. He's a Harvard graduate, a West Point graduate, and a young black male who is the mayor of Shreveport, which is the 3rd largest city in the state of Louisiana. And so he's made some ground here. Reverend Raphael Warnock in Georgia is the pastor of a historic church there in Georgia and doing a phenomenal job. He's actually leading in the polls in his jungle primary that he's in. So he'll be in a runoff, I think, in January. And so I think that whatever black folks and liberals around this country can do to help him come January. Perkins will probably be in a runoff December the 5th, and whatever we can do to help them. And of course, we just talked about Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, but I've also got to bring up Mike Espy in Mississippi. Mike Espy is in the blackest state in America, and he's running against Cindy Hyde, right? And she is terrible, okay? If Lindsey Graham's terrible, she's just as equally terrible, right? Cindy Hyde is the one who said at an event that she would go with this guy who was running for office to a public hanging, right? As if that was a joke, and Mike Espy is a former member of Bill Clinton's cabinet, a former congressman, and just an all-around good guy from everything that I understand. And I just hope that the black folks and liberal folks in Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Georgia go handle their business, because beyond just having the ability to beat Donald Trump, we have the ability to make history in many of these states by giving some of these people the opportunity to lead.
Exactly. And you talked about the qualifications of some of these candidates. I want to talk a little bit more about that. But obviously the individual candidates, a lot of them are absolutely amazing. But let's also remind people. I know it's easy to get hyper focused on the presidential race in a presidential election year, and especially when it's Donald Trump, obviously. But bear in mind that, like, if Biden wins and the Republicans keep the Senate, is that better than the last 3 years? Sure. Is it that much better? Kinda. You're not gonna have a lot getting done over the next few years. So some of these races are gonna be really important. Mike Espy came very close to winning the last time. In a year where things are trending, towards the Democrats, that might be enough to put him over. And I also wanted to say, you mentioned particularly about Adrian Perkins, like you said, graduate of Harvard Law School, graduate of West Point, served 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, earning the Bronze Star and the rank of captain. This is great production by our team, and is the grandson of a sharecropper. I mean, what a story. Like, how could you be more qualified as a candidate than those things? It's not to say that I agree on every policy with all these candidates, but it is an amazing slate of candidates being put up in what could be a historic year.
I will tell you that you probably agree more with them than you do any of the people they're running against, right?
I 100%.
That at the core, right, these people have the opportunity to do something special in their states. And when we talk about the future of America, consider this: when Barack Obama was elected to the U.S. Senate, he was the only black senator in the Senate at the time. Then Tim Scott came in, then Cory Booker came in, then Kamala Harris came in. I hate that I mess her name up, I'm sorry. Kamala Harris comes in, right? And so you've got more folks in there at this point, but we have gone decades without representation in this body. And as a result, sometimes just having someone with the cultural competence to have a conversation at the table changes the outcome of policy, right? And as somebody from the South, right? As a black man from the South, in the words of Andre 3000, the South got something to say, okay? And I'm looking to see one of these brothers win and go up there and speak on behalf of a constituency of people who have not been heard in the chambers of the United States Senate.
Yeah. And there's, I just want to say we talked about a number of candidates. There's one that I wish we could add to that list. I wish that Charles Booker was running against Mitch McConnell. Unfortunately, sort of narrowly lost to Amy McGrath, who would be a massive improvement over Mitch McConnell, obviously in a million different ways. But like the conversation during the primary was that she was not going to run a vigorous enough campaign against McConnell, that you need someone like Charles Booker. And I would say that watching over the past few months, I think that was probably right. And we have a quote from Charles Booker that I want to read to you about why a lot of these candidates might be considered underdogs, why generally they don't receive the support of their party during primaries. Amy McGrath was endorsed by the DSCC. He says that the idea that the party tends to approach in these races is that what Dems need to do is they need to win over swing voters. They don't need to, like motivate the base or bring totally new voters in. It's just get some of those Republicans basically to vote for you. And those Republicans are almost always white. So he says that is often equated to a certain model of a candidate that doesn't include people that look like me and come from where I come from. And it typically involves a style of politics or a political theory that runs away from structural issues, that runs away from racism and poverty, and tries to peel off conservative votes. And I agree with that.
I agree with that 110%. I just watched the state of Louisiana elect a white woman to run the Democratic Party here over a highly qualified Ted James state representative here, because they believe that this white woman would bring over white voters into the Democratic Party because they're concerned about losing white voters, right? But there's never really a serious conversation about how do we get all the black folks in the state to vote that already agree with our policies, right? When you look at when Stacey Abrams lost in Georgia, there were 1 million black people in the metro Atlanta area that did not vote, right? How do you go get those 1 million black folks and get them to the polls? Because the majority of them already think like you, they already agree with you, and their policy points are gonna be in a line. And so I think that trying to convince what they call the soft white vote to cross over, right? I think is wasted energy. And let me tell you why. Because I believe that the white voters who are going to vote for a Biden, who are going to vote for a Democrat, they are going to do it on the principles, not on the personality, right? And I think that those people are there. But the people who are telling you they don't like these candidates that they're forcing down their throat, the people who are telling you that look, I want more from my government, for my communities, for people who look like me, those are the people that were just saying, hey, look, be quiet, just go vote, right? And hence why folks like Ice Cube are out there pushing to get either side to pay attention to black people, right? I think his timing may be off, right? But at this point, the reason black folks are at a crossroads with Democrats is because when you've got a guy like Mr. Booker running, right? You don't take them serious. And so people are willing to say, you know what? All the bets are off. And so the Democratic Party is going to have to recognize that the voices that they need the most are probably the voices that they're just telling to be quiet right now.
Yeah. And in that race, they ignored him, and he came very close to beating Amy McGrath, despite getting, I think he was outspent 81 times over. And so, look, they pumped a huge amount of money in there to get Amy McGrath rather than him, money that could have been saved by putting a tiny fraction of the money into supporting him. And that's in the primary. Are we supposed to expect that there's no effect in the general election? That they're not gonna have to spend tons of money to get some people to reluctantly accept Amy McGrath when they could have had Charles Booker, who did amazingly even without the institutional support? I understand we're way beyond it. There's no way to take that back, and he'll run again in the future. He implied as much the last time we had him on the show. Anyway, that's just one of the most unfortunate things in the primary, a primary that had a lot of unfortunate things going on.
But we've got to talk about that though, John, because that's what gets us the ability to deal with the issues before we end up at the next election, right? So that when Mr. Booker is back up again, that the financial support can be there, so that the political support can be there. Because if Amy McGrath loses, that means you wasted millions of dollars on a failed candidate when you could have gone with this one. And so don't ask people to get behind a duplicate of her in the next go round when you've got somebody that's qualified and ready to go.
Yeah, although that's what they do. I mean, there's a lot of Amy McGraths that have run in a lot of Senate elections over the past 10 or 20 years, unfortunately. For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.